What happens when a racist manager fires a loyal employee over a small mistake? Find out how karma delivers a powerful twist when the fired worker rises to success while the manager's world unravels, showing that justice always finds its way. Jasmine had always been the type of person who believed in working hard and doing things the right way. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, she learned early on that nothing worth having came easy. From the moment she graduated with honors in business management, she knew that her dreams of making a real impact in the corporate world would require more than just skills. It would take dedication, resilience, and a constant belief in herself, even when the odds were stacked against her. At her current job, Jasmine had earned a reputation as someone you could count on. Her coworkers admired her ability to stay calm under pressure, always lending a hand when needed. She arrived early every day, stayed late when there was extra work to do, and took on tasks others were hesitant to try. Despite facing the occasional challenge, including subtle microaggressions from her colleagues, Jasmine kept her head high. Her goal was always to climb the corporate ladder, not just for herself, but to prove that hard work and integrity could outshine any bias. But the person who truly tested her resolve was her manager, Mark Davidson. A man in his mid-40s, with a sharp suit and even sharper words. Mark had a reputation around the office. He wasn't openly cruel, but there was something in the way he spoke to Jasmine that always felt different, a patronizing tone. A slight smirk when he made a comment about her hair, or the way she carried herself. Mark often joked about the diversity initiatives at the company, making remarks that seemed harmless at first, but became impossible to ignore over time. Jasmine had noticed how he favored certain employees, usually those who fit his narrow view of what a successful person should look like. His approval was always harder to come by for those who didn't match his expectations. It wasn't long before Jasmine started to feel the weight of Mark's subtle yet constant bias. She had learned to brush it off, but deep down, it hurt. She knew that despite her talent and dedication, Mark's mindset could be an obstacle she'd have to overcome. If she wanted to succeed, she'd need to rise above him, no matter how unfair it seemed. It was a minor mistake, one that any employee could have made on a stressful day. Jasmine had been juggling several tasks at once, trying to meet the tight deadline for a crucial presentation. Her boss had asked her to finalize a report, and in her rush, she had accidentally attached the wrong version of the file to an email sent to the senior executives. The document contained outdated data that wasn't reflective of the team's latest progress. It was an honest error, one that could have easily been corrected with a follow-up email or a quick conversation. But for Mark, this mistake was more than just a simple oversight. He saw it as an opportunity, an excuse to get rid of someone who, in his eyes, wasn't quite fitting the corporate mold. Mark called Jasmine into his office later that afternoon. The door shut behind her with a heavy click, and she instantly felt a chill in the air. Mark was sitting behind his desk, a stern expression on his face. "You've made a critical mistake, Jasmine," he began, his tone cold. "This isn't the first time you've dropped the ball. I'm afraid I have to let you go. We need people here who can be trusted with important tasks." Jasmine's heart sank, her hands trembling slightly. She tried to hold her composure, fighting to keep the anger and confusion from bubbling to the surface. "Sir, I understand the mistake, but this is an error that can be fixed. I've worked hard for this company. I've always been dedicated. I can make this right." But Mark wasn't listening. He was already shaking his head, dismissing her words. "It's too late for that. You've been given multiple chances, and this is just one too many. I'm sorry, but your position here is no longer available." Jasmine felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. She had given her all to this job, proving herself day after day, staying late and always going above and beyond. To be dismissed so callously, over something so trivial, left her feeling hollow. The shock of it hit her first, and then the hurt followed. She tried to appeal the decision, to reason with him, but Mark's mind was made up. The more she spoke, the more he seemed determined to ignore her. As she walked out of his office, the sting of betrayal burned deep. She felt broken, not just by the firing, but by the realization that her loyalty, her hard work, had never truly mattered. To Mark, she had always been nothing more than an afterthought, someone easily discarded the moment she made a mistake. Despite her attempts to stay positive, the pain of being judged for something as insignificant as a single error, especially by someone who had always undermined her, was overwhelming. The weight of it pressed on her chest, leaving her feeling more defeated than she ever imagined. Mark Davidson sat in his office, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips as he leaned back in his chair. Firing Jasmine felt like a victory. He had taken out one of the weak links in his eyes, someone who didn't fit the mold of the company he envisioned. With her gone, he believed the office would run more smoothly, with fewer distractions, fewer voices challenging his authority. He had gained control again, reaffirming his dominance within the team. The sense of triumph lingered as he prepared for the next board meeting. He didn't even consider the fact that his decision might have been unjust or driven by bias. To him, it was just another necessary step in asserting his position as the leader, a decision that was purely rational. With Jasmine out of the picture, Mark felt emboldened. He walked through the office with an air of superiority, a sense of power that radiated with each step. He thought to himself, "I've made this company better. I've made it stronger." But as the days passed, cracks began to form in Mark's seemingly impenetrable armor. It started with whispers in the break room. Employees who had once respected him began to share concerns about his leadership style, his inconsistency, his lack of empathy. Some even muttered about his previous comments, the ones that didn't sit right with them but had been ignored until now. The atmosphere in the office began to shift, and Mark started to notice fewer people engaging with him during meetings. His ideas, once applauded, were now met with hesitant silence or polite nods that felt hollow. The complaints trickled in, first from HR, and then from his own department heads. Employees were coming forward, citing issues with his communication and tone. They didn't feel comfortable working under him anymore. In his arrogance, Mark dismissed it all as petty grievances. But the signs were there. His decisions were becoming more erratic, his temper shorter, and his once sharp judgment now clouded by arrogance. His rise to power seemed to come with an inevitable decline. While he basked in the belief that firing Jasmine was a display of his strength, karma had begun its quiet work behind the scenes. Mark's isolation grew as his colleagues began to distance themselves, and the once harmonious office environment started to falter under his increasingly toxic presence. The manager who thought he had everything under control was now starting to lose the very power he believed he had gained. After her firing, Jasmine was devastated, but she refused to let it define her. Instead of sinking into despair, she channeled her pain into action. Determined to prove herself, she spent the next few weeks networking and updating her resume. Her dedication paid off when she landed an interview with a well-known tech company, renowned for its commitment to diversity and inclusivity. It felt like a breath of fresh air. The hiring manager appreciated her experience and leadership potential, and within days, she was offered a position that not only paid more, but also offered better growth opportunities. At her new job, Jasmine thrived. The environment was supportive, her colleagues respected her, and her contributions were celebrated. She quickly gained a reputation as a capable, reliable, and innovative leader. The company's leadership took notice, and it wasn't long before she was promoted to a senior position. Her career trajectory soared as she earned the respect and recognition that had always eluded her at her previous job. Jasmine had built a new life, one where she was appreciated for her skills and value, not her appearance or background. Meanwhile, Mark's company, the one that had so easily discarded Jasmine, was falling apart. Slowly at first, and then all at once, the consequences of his poor leadership decisions began to surface. Whispers of discrimination and toxic work culture reached the public, sparking a wave of negative press. Employee morale plummeted, and key talent began to leave in droves. The company's reputation was in tatters, and sales plummeted as competitors capitalized on the fallout. Mark's once unshakable sense of superiority started to crumble as he realized how much damage he had caused. The final twist came when Jasmine heard that her former employer had been sold off and merged with a competing company. The new leadership team, which included a number of executives known for their progressive values, wasted no time in cleaning house. Mark was ousted from his position, replaced by people who understood the importance of inclusivity and fair treatment. The company that had once seemed invincible was now struggling, its reputation permanently tainted. What Jasmine didn't know at first was that her new employer, the one that had valued her from the start, was now the leading competitor to her old company. The business she had joined had rapidly grown in influence, and she now played a key role in its success. As she watched Mark's company flounder, she couldn't help but smile. Karma had come full circle, and she had not only survived, but thrived. Months had passed since Jasmine had left her old company, and her life had taken a turn for the better. She had risen through the ranks of her new company, her reputation now firmly established as a leader who brought integrity, diversity, and innovation to the table. As fate would have it, Jasmine's path would cross with Mark's once again. But this time, the circumstances were drastically different. It happened at a corporate event, a high-profile networking gala where the industry's top players gathered to discuss business deals and future collaborations. Jasmine had been invited as one of the senior executives representing her company. As she moved through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, her eyes landed on a familiar face. It was Mark Davidson, standing near a group of potential investors, trying to make himself look important. His once confident demeanor now seemed slightly frazzled, the sharp suit he wore failing to hide the air of desperation that clung to him. Mark's gaze landed on her as well, and his face froze. For a moment there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, followed by a brief flash of discomfort. He took a hesitant step toward her, unsure how to react. Jasmine, however, remained calm and composed, her expression neutral. She offered a polite smile, extending her hand for a handshake. "Mr. Davidson," she said in a tone that was cordial but distant, "it's good to see you again." Mark stammered, his confidence clearly shaken. "Jasmine, I didn't expect to see you here." There was a hint of unease in his voice as he realized the woman he had fired was now standing in a position of power, an undeniable success. He knew the weight of the moment. He couldn't escape it. Jasmine didn't feel the need to say anything more. No words of revenge, no harsh retort. She didn't need to prove anything to him. Her success spoke volumes. As she turned away, she could sense the full force of karma settling in on Mark. He had spent so much time trying to break others down, and now he was the one left to face the consequences of his actions. The story of Jasmine and Mark served as a poignant reminder. Doing the right thing, staying true to one's values, and persevering through hardship always leads to eventual success. Even when the world seems unfair, those who act with integrity and resilience find their way to the top. On the other hand, injustice and hate only lead to a downfall, leaving those who perpetuate them to face the bitter reality of their own actions. In the end, it wasn't Jasmine's words that mattered. It was her unwavering spirit, her commitment to being the best version of herself, that triumphed.